This exegesis analyzes the textual link between the historical scattering of Israel, the promise of restoration, and the specific divine timeline governing the covenant. Isaiah 54 presents a core temporal paradox. It addresses centuries of profound national trauma, yet the text classifies this entire historical era as a fleeting, momentary event. Isaiah chapter 54, verse 8 states, "In a little wrath I hid my face from thee for a moment, but with everlasting kindness will I have mercy on thee, saith the Lord thy Redeemer." The author employs inverse hyperbole here. By labeling the period of divine withdrawal as a little wrath, the text creates a linguistic contrast intended to magnify the scale of the everlasting kindness that follows. From a human historical perspective, this small moment encompasses roughly 2,000 years. It spans the era from the initial Roman destructions to the modern rebuilding of the nation, framed as a temporary pause in the Lord's direct protection. The historical catalyst for this exile began with the Roman-Israeli wars of the 1st and 2nd centuries. These conflicts initiated a scattering that the text views as the beginning of the moment where the Lord hid his face. The immense weight of this two-millennial diaspora is held in tension against the scriptural promise of mercy that never expires. Ultimately, the text suggests that human historical suffering, even when measured in millennia, is only a microfraction of the timeline defined by an eternal covenant. Next, we examine the legal and structural permanence of this promised restoration. Isaiah chapter 54, verse 9 states, "For this is as the waters of Noah unto me. For as I have sworn that the waters of Noah should no more go over the earth, so have I sworn that I would not be wroth with thee, nor rebuke thee." The invocation of the Noahic covenant serves as a formal legal precedent. It grounds the future of the nation in a promise as absolute as the cessation of the global flood. Just as the flood was a definitive judgment that God swore never to repeat, the text indicates that the specific era of divine rebuke against the nation has legally concluded. Because this era of judgment is finished, the text implies that subsequent conflicts are products of human animosity rather than divine punishment. Isaiah chapter 54, verse 10 states, "For the mountains shall depart, and the hills be removed. But my kindness shall not depart from thee, neither shall the covenant of my peace be removed, saith the Lord that hath mercy on thee." The text employs a geological metaphor, looking to the eventual erosion of mountains and hills as a benchmark for time. The promise is that the covenant of peace will outlast even the millions of years required for a mountain to erode into a plain, rendering the restoration permanent. Together, verses 8 through 10 establish a legal framework that definitively ends the era of divine scattering. This section addresses the structural and architectural imagery used to describe Israel's transition from instability to security. Isaiah chapter 54, verse 11 states, "O thou afflicted, tossed with tempest, and not comforted, behold, I will lay thy stones with fair colors, and lay thy foundations with sapphires." The imagery of being tossed with tempest serves as a metaphor for the vulnerability and turmoil of the past exile. The stones with fair colors and sapphire foundations symbolize a move toward a glorious and well-built future where the people are physically and spiritually established. This architectural language closely mirrors the structural descriptions of the New Jerusalem found in Revelation 21, linking the two texts. Isaiah chapter 54, verse 12 states, "And I will make thy windows of agates, and thy gates of carbuncles, and all thy borders of pleasant stones." By utilizing rare and precious stones like agates and carbuncles, the text allegorizes the immense value and spiritual splendor of the restored nation. Ancient translations like the Septuagint render the word borders as walls, emphasizing a strictly defensive and secure architectural boundary. The passage uses the most impenetrable materials known to antiquity to describe an era of absolute spiritual and physical security. We move now from the physical fortification to the heathen homeland residing within this architecture. Isaiah chapter 54, verse 13 states, "And all thy children shall be taught of the Lord, and great shall be the peace of thy children." Being taught of the Lord can be understood in two ways, as a return to the laws of the Old Testament or as a specific recognition of Jesus Christ. Modern proponents of the latter view point to the growing numbers of Jews worldwide who have come to believe in Christ as a fulfillment of this promise. The text suggests that this adherence to gospel principles creates a direct, practical result: internal peace and contentment for the next generation. Isaiah chapter 54, verse 14 states, "In righteousness shalt thou be established. Thou shalt be far from oppression, for thou shalt not fear, and from terror, for it shall not come near thee." To be established in righteousness results in a state where systemic oppression and terror can no longer touch the community. This internal peace is effectively protected by the spiritual and physical walls described in the preceding architectural metaphors. The internal peace of the inhabitants and the external fortification of the nation are presented as codependent outcomes of the covenant. We now examine the text's stance on adversarial forces. Isaiah chapter 54, verse 15 states, "Behold, they shall surely gather together, but not by me. Whosoever shall gather together against thee shall fall for thy sake." This verse acknowledges that enemies will gather against the nation, but emphasizes that these actions are initiated by men, not by divine decree. The wide, arid expanse of the Judean hills serves as the tangible landscape where these gathered forces have historically attempted to dismantle the nation. Because the Lord did not ordain these hostile gatherings, the text asserts that their attempts to destroy the people are predestined to fail. Isaiah chapter 54, verse 16 states, "Behold, I have created the smith that bloweth the coals in the fire, and that bringeth forth an instrument for his work, and I have created the waster to destroy." This verse introduces a form of divine determinism through the figures of the smith and the waster. While the waster is explicitly created to destroy, this destruction remains under absolute divine control. The smith who makes the weapon and the warrior who uses it are both under the power of the Creator, who permits them to act only within the limits required to refine his people. Even the most devastating human tools are bound by the constraints of their Creator, making a true existential threat impossible. This brings us to the culminating promise of the entire passage. Isaiah chapter 54, verse 17 states, "No weapon that is formed against thee shall prosper, and every tongue that shall rise against thee in judgment thou shalt condemn. This is the heritage of the servants of the Lord, and their righteousness is of me, saith the Lord." The final heritage defined here is complete and perpetual immunity from the ultimate success of any adversarial weapon. This verse serves as the logical seal on the framework established across verses 8 through 16. The text concludes by guaranteeing the survival of the nation through a combination of divine architectural security and total sovereignty over conflict. So how does this reconcile with Armageddon? This concludes our overview.